Welcome to Wealth MatriXCrossroads, where wealth meets strategy. Today, we're tackling a pretty big question. Why is it that education, risk, and capital often fail to work the way we think they should? Let's dive right in.
We're all drawn to this idea, aren't we? The leverage point. It's that one simple fix, that silver bullet solution we're all looking for that could solve our most complex problems if we could just find the right spot to push. It's clean, it's satisfying, and it just feels like it should be true.
But here's the catch. This simple, mechanical idea, it sets a trap. Because the real world, our economies, our schools, our businesses, they aren't simple machines. They're more like living, adaptive systems. And trying to treat them like a simple lever is the first, and honestly, the biggest mistake we make.
So let's start by dismantling this myth. We're going to explore why our gut feelings, our intuition about where to push and what to fix are so often profoundly wrong.
Jay Forrester, a real pioneer in systems thinking, he put it perfectly. He said that we often look in the right place. We can sense where the power is. But our intuition tells us to push, when really we should be pulling. This is our first major miscalculation of risk. The risk of applying all our energy in a way that actually makes the problem worse.
Let's look at this through the lens of capital. In the world of finance, leverage is a beautiful mechanical tool, right? You use borrowed capital to predictably amplify your returns. But in a complex system, like a company culture, leverage is a completely different animal. It's not a machine. It's more like an evolving organism that transforms through shifts in shared understanding, not by some kind of brute force.
And that leads us to the crucial question. If we have to throw out the simple wrench and lever toolkit, what do we replace it with? How do we find the places where our efforts can actually make a meaningful, lasting difference?
Well, luckily for us, we have a map. The brilliant systems thinker Donella Meadows created what she called a hierarchy of interventions. It's basically a guide that takes us from the least effective actions all the way up to the deepest, most powerful places to create real change.
So here's a simplified look at that hierarchy. Way down at the bottom, you've got the plumbing, just tweaking the numbers. As we move up the ladder, we get to more powerful points like changing the rules of the game. But the real power, the stuff that changes everything, is right there at the top. Changing the system's goals and the core beliefs it was built on in the first place.
So let's start our journey at the bottom of this ladder because, this is where most of our energy is actually spent. This is the world of tinkering, where we constantly misapply our time, our energy, and our capital.
Think about it. Most political debates, most management meetings are all about these things. Adjusting budgets, setting new KPIs, changing tax rates. We're just fiddling with the knobs. But we rarely stop to question the design of the machine itself. And these little adjustments, they almost never change the system's fundamental behavior.
And this kind of thinking leads directly to a critical concept, something called the capability trap. This is a really nasty, vicious cycle where working harder today creates a massive, unseen risk by completely destroying your ability to perform tomorrow.
This diagram shows the trap in action. You see that educational outcome gap? That creates a ton of pressure. So the intuitive response is to follow that loop B1, work harder on the immediate needs of students. But this starves loop B2, the work smarter loop, which is where real capability building happens. And just like that, you're stuck in a vicious cycle of decline.
And this isn't just a theory. A study of the St. Louis school system showed this exact dynamic at play. And it shows how our thinking completely fails education. Immense pressure forced teachers into constant firefighting mode. There was simply no time or energy left to improve teaching methods. The result? Total burnout, high teacher turnover, and eroding trust, which just made the original problem even worse.
So here's the crucial point, the real punchline. The terrible outcomes weren't an accident. They were the natural result of the system's structure. The system was performing exactly as it was designed to.
So how do we escape this trap? We have to move up the hierarchy. We have to stop tinkering with the small stuff and start changing the actual rules of the game.
40%. What does this number mean? Well, it's the result of one of the most elegant and powerful interventions you can possibly imagine.
That 40% represents the reduction in toxic emissions after the U.S. government created something called the Toxic Release Inventory. They didn't pass new laws or impose massive fines, they just changed the flow of information by making the data public. That simple feedback loop achieved what billions in regulation might not have.
See, interventions like this are so powerful because they change the system's actual structure. We're talking about the fundamental rules like constitutions, the distribution of power over who gets to make those rules, and even a system's incredible ability to self-organize and evolve. Now we arrive at the very top of the hierarchy. This is where we stop tinkering with the machine's parts and start asking the really big questions. What is this machine even for? And what beliefs led us to build it this way in the first place?
The goal of the system and the paradigm behind it, these are the ultimate points of power. Changing what a system is trying to achieve is infinitely more powerful than changing any of its internal parts.
This Emerson quote captures it perfectly. Our entire world, our institutions, our rules, it's all just a physical manifestation of our deepest beliefs. Our paradigm defines what we value, what we see as a risk, and where we decide to invest our capital.
And this brings us full circle. If the mechanical lever is the wrong metaphor, what's the right one? What if the goal isn't to force change from the outside, but to help a system see itself differently from the inside?
And this gives us a completely new definition. Systemic leverage isn't about mechanics. It's about meaning. It's about changing the story the system tells itself. This is also how we can start to rethink risk, not as a number to be managed, but as a concept that's defined by our culture. When we rethink what risk really means, everything else starts to change.
And so, the greatest power we have to change a system is in fostering the ability to see it in a completely new light. It's not about finding a magic lever, it's about creating a new lens. Okay, let's quickly recap what we've covered about why our old models for change are so often failing us.
First, that popular idea of a magic lever, it's a flawed and misleading metaphor. We saw how applying the cold, hard logic of financial capital to living, breathing systems almost always backfires. In education, we saw how focusing on shallow fixes creates the massive risk of falling into the capability trap. The real power, the true leverage, lies so much deeper in changing the rules, the goals, and ultimately, the shared paradigms that shape our entire world.
Now, if you found this exploration of systems and leverage points insightful, you are absolutely going to love where we're headed next.
I am quite sure you don't want to miss our discussion on how people reposition themselves mid-career, mid-life, or mid-business without starting over. In the next video, we shall be discussing repositioning without starting over.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. Where is the deepest leverage point you've been overlooking in your own world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And please, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with others. We promise to keep bringing you quality, enlightening, and enduring lessons and strategies about wealth.